Imagine looking up at a $1.3 billion masterpiece of modern architecture, a shimmering pillar of glass and steel that was supposed to be the pride of Birmingham, and seeing a single tiny spiderweb crack on the 42nd floor. To anyone on the street, it looks like a minor blemish, maybe a bird strike or a manufacturing defect. But to the structural engineers who built this tower, that crack is a scream. It is the first visible sign that the most expensive building in the city's history is literally tearing themselves apart from the inside out. Within just 18 months of the grand opening, this glass giant began to fail in ways that shouldn't be possible for a modern skyscraper. But the most shocking part isn't the engineering failure. It's the massive cover-up that followed. We have uncovered evidence that city officials and the development group were receiving urgent, high-priority safety reports for over a year. And instead of taking action or warning the public, they buried every single one of them in a vault of non-disclosure agreements. Today we are going deep into the scandal of the Birmingham Glass Tower, a $1.3 billion disaster that the city tried to pretend never happened. To truly understand the scale of this failure, you have to understand what this building represented. Birmingham has been on a quest to reinvent itself as a global tech and finance hub. They didn't just want a new office building, they wanted a vertical beacon. The design called for over 10,000 custom-engineered glass panels, each one worth more than a luxury car. These weren't standard windows. They were high-tech, triple-glazed units with integrated solar film and self-tinting capabilities. The building was supposed to be the pinnacle of 20th-century green technology. But there was a problem that started in the supply chain long before the first panel was ever installed on the steel frame. The thermal stress paradox is something every skyscraper architect fears. When you build a tower that is almost entirely covered in high-performance glass, the building is constantly fighting against the sun. One side of the tower gets baked in extreme heat, causing the glass and the underlying aluminum frames to expand. Meanwhile, the shaded side stays cool and contracted. Usually a building is designed to handle this differential expansion through a series of flexible joints. However, in Birmingham, the demand for a seamless look led the designers to utilize a revolutionary new ultra-rigid mounting system. They wanted the building to look like a single continuous sheet of ice. By removing the traditional expansion gaps to achieve that aesthetic, they effectively turned the entire exterior of the building into a giant pressure cooker. 18 months after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the pressure reached a breaking point. It started with a sound that office workers described as a cannon shot echoing through the upper floors. These sounds were actually the sounds of the high-tension mounting bolts snapping under the immense force of the expanding glass. When a bolt snaps at that height, it releases enough energy to send shock waves through the neighboring panels. One by one, the shimmering ice began to develop deep, internal fractures. This is where the story shifts from a technical failure to a full-blown conspiracy. The very first report, filed by a maintenance contractor in late 2024, warned that the structural integrity of the curtain wall system is currently being compromised by unforeseen thermal loads. This report should have triggered an immediate public safety exclusion zone around the base of the building. Instead, it was marked as confidential and filed away in a city archive that requires a high-level security clearance to access. Why would a city hide a report about a falling building? The answer, as always, is follows the money. Birmingham had just issued a massive series of municipal bonds backed by the projected tax revenue from this tower. If the building were declared unsafe, those bonds would become worthless, and the city's credit rating would plummet into the basement. As the months went on, the situation grew worse. The internal reports, which we have now seen through a series of leaks, began to use increasingly desperate language. One lead engineer wrote that the building was effectively self-disassembling at a rate of 5 millimeters per month. They found that the rigid mounting system was actually bending the perimeter steel beams. The glass was so strong that instead of breaking, it was pulling the building's skeleton out of alignment. Think about that for a second. The skin of the building was actually winning a tug-of-war against the structural steel. This is a nightmare scenario for any builder. While the public was walking underneath the tower, blissfully unaware, the city was quietly installing catch nets disguised as decorative awnings. If you look at the photos from early 2025, you can see these strange, heavy-duty mesh structures being erected over the entrances. The official explanation was that they were aesthetic enhancements for a new outdoor seating area. In reality, they were there to catch falling shards of glass and metal bolts before they reached the sidewalk. They were literally expecting the building to start shedding pieces of itself. The invisible nature of this crisis is what makes it so fascinating. If a bridge collapses, everyone knows immediately. But when a skyscraper fails through thermal stress and structural misalignment, it happens in slow motion. It's a series of microscopic movements that add up to a catastrophic result. In the Birmingham Tower, the misalignment eventually reached the point where the doors on the upper floors wouldn't close anymore. Professional firms occupying the luxury suites started complaining about ghost winds whistling through the walls. This wasn't a haunting. It was the sound of the building's pressurized air system escaping through the gaps created by the shifting glass panels. The cover-up intensified as whistleblowers within the city planning department started to talk. Several inspectors refused to sign off on the annual safety certifications. These inspectors were reportedly reassigned to different districts or pressured into taking early retirement. One inspector, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, described a meeting where city officials told them that public perception is more important than technical perfection. They were told that the building was flexible and that the cracking was just settling, a blatant lie considering the technical data they had on hand. By the middle of 2025, the internal repair and secrecy budget for the tower had surpassed $80 million. They were hiring specialized rappelling teams to go out in the middle of the night, between 2 and 4 in the morning, to replace cracked panels and snapped bolts. If you lived in a nearby apartment, you might have seen the strange glow of welding torches high up on the tower in the pre-dawn hours. The city was trying to rebuild the building's facade one piece at a time without anyone noticing. It was an incredible feat of logistical gymnastics, but it was also a massive betrayal of public trust. Why did the structural engineers allow this aesthetic to go forward in the first place? In the world of high-stakes architecture, there is often a clash of egos. The lead architect on the Birmingham project was a world-renowned figure who was famous for pushing the boundaries of what glass could do. When the structural team raised concerns about the thermal expansion, they were reportedly overruled by the developers who wanted the award-winning look at any cost. They believed that they could engineer their way around the laws of physics. They thought that by using enough high-strength adhesives and specialized alloys, they could make the building behave exactly how they wanted. But the sun doesn't care about your awards, and physics doesn't take bribes. There is also the subway factor. The Birmingham Tower was built directly over a major transit hub. This means the building is subject to constant low-frequency vibrations from the trains passing below. Under normal circumstances, this wouldn't be an issue. But because the glass skin was already under extreme tension from the thermal stress, these vibrations acted like a hammer hitting a drumhead. Each train that passed through the station sent a ripple of energy up the spine of the tower, further weakening the mounting points. It was a perfect storm of environmental factors all working together to dismantle a $1.3 billion investment. When we talk about failing mega projects, we often look at the concrete or the steel. But in Birmingham, the failure was also in the data integrity. The city maintained a public-facing dashboard that showed the building's energy efficiency and safety status as green, even as the internal reports were screaming red. This mismatch between reality and public messaging is a hallmark of modern corporate and governmental mismanagement. They were managing the brand of the building, not the building itself. The financial fallout is just beginning to surface. In late 2025, a major insurance company performed their own independent audit of the tower after noticing the unusual amount of nighttime maintenance activity. Their findings were so severe that they immediately revoked the building's primary liability insurance. Without insurance, the major corporate tenants are technically in violation of their lease agreements. This has triggered a silent exodus. If you look at the directory of the Birmingham Tower today, you'll see some of the biggest names in finance and tech. But if you were to walk through their offices, you would find entire floors that are empty, with desks still in their plastic wrap. The companies are paying rent just to keep the city quiet, while their employees have been moved to safer, more stable locations. This is a zombie mega project. It looks alive on the outside, but the heart of it has already stopped beating. It's a building that shouldn't be standing, yet it remains because the cost of admitting failure is too high for anyone to pay. The city of Birmingham is currently trapped by its own skyscraper. They can't admit the building is failing without bankrupting the city, and they can't fix it without revealing the cover-up. So, they keep paying the nighttime repair crews, they keep hiding the reports, and they keep hoping that the next cannon-shot sound isn't followed by a shower of glass. The technical solution to the Birmingham Glass Tower would be to completely remove the rigid mounting system and reinstall every single one of the 10,000 panels with a traditional expansion joint system. This would cost approximately $400 million and would take 3 years to complete. It would also completely change the look of the building, turning the seamless ice into a standard-looking skyscraper. For the architect and the developers, this would be a total admission of defeat. They would rather risk a catastrophic failure than an aesthetic compromise. As we look at the tower today, you can see the toll the secrecy is taking. The catch nets are still there, although they've been integrated into the design more cleverly. The nighttime repair crews are still active, and the city still refuses to release the full geological and structural audits. But you can't censor the wind, and you can't hide the sound of a building that is under too much pressure. The residents of Birmingham have started to call the tower the singing skyscraper because of the eerie, high-pitched whistling it makes during temperature shifts. It's the sound of air under pressure, and it's a constant reminder of the secret being kept in plain sight. The story of the Birmingham Tower is a warning for the next generation of urban development. It shows what happens when we prioritize the Instagrammability of a building over its structural reality. We are living in an era where we can render anything on a computer, and we think that means we can build it in the real world without consequences. But the real world has heat, it has vibration, and it has the relentless passage of time. A building is not a static picture, it is a living machine that has to breathe. If you don't let it breathe, it will eventually choke. There is also the human cost to consider. The workers who are tasked with the nighttime repairs are putting themselves at significant risk. They are working on a compromised structure, handling heavy glass panels in high wind conditions, all while being sworn to secrecy. This is the shadow economy of failing megaprojects, a group of people who are paid well to ensure that the mistakes of the powerful remain hidden from the public eye. As this saga continues, we have to ask, how many other glass towers are out there? How many other cities are hiding reports about their new landmarks? In the rush to look modern and attract investment, many cities have entered into public-private partnerships that are shrouded in secrecy. These deals often include clauses that prevent the city from disclosing negative information about the project to the public. This means that the people who are actually paying for these buildings, the taxpayers, are the last ones to know when they are in danger. The Birmingham Glass Tower is a monument to the 2020s. It represents the intersection of high-concept design, speculative finance, and administrative secrecy. It is a beautiful, shimmering failure that illustrates the limits of our engineering hubris. The city might hide the reports, the developers might sign the NDAs, and the architect might win his awards, but the glass doesn't care. Individual panels will continue to crack, the bolts will continue to snap, and the vertical beacon will continue to scream its warnings to anyone who cares to listen. If you ever find yourself in downtown Birmingham, stand across the street from the tower. Don't look at the lobby or the grand entrance. Look at the corners. Look at the places where the glass meets the steel. In the right light, you can see the slight bows, the tiny gaps, and the replacement panels that don't quite match the original tint. You are looking at a $1.3 billion puzzle that is missing half its pieces. It's a fascinating, terrifying glimpse into what happens when a city decides that a lie is more valuable than the truth. This megaproject failure isn't over. It's a drama that is still being written in the quiet hours of the night. Every sunrise that hits that glass is another test of the building's endurance. Every passing train is another stress test for the mounting bolts. We are watching a slow-motion collision between human vanity and the laws of the universe. And in that collision, the universe always wins. The Birmingham Glass Tower is falling apart. The city is hiding the proof. But eventually, the gravity of the situation will become impossible to ignore. Stay alert, because the story of this shattered dream is just getting started. And when the rest of the world finally sees those reports, the impact will be felt far beyond the streets of Birmingham. The ultimate failure here wasn't just in the glass or the bolts. It was a failure of the system that is supposed to protect the public. When the city becomes a partner with the developer, the city loses its ability to be an objective inspector. They become part of the problem. They become co-conspirators in the brand management of a disaster. This tower should serve as a wake-up call for every municipal government. You cannot build a city on a foundation of secrets and shimmering glass. You have to build it on the truth, even if the truth isn't quite as pretty as the architectural renders promised it would be. As we conclude our look into the Birmingham Glass Tower, remember that the most successful projects aren't the ones that look the best in a brochure. They are the ones that are still standing, stable and secure, 50 years from now. The Birmingham Tower didn't even make it to 2 years without needing a secret rescue operation. That is the definition of a failing megaproject. It's a $1.3 billion lesson that Birmingham and the rest of the world will be studying for a very long time. Keep your eyes on the skyline because sometimes the most impressive sights are the ones that are actually falling apart right in front of us.